Perfect. All right, thanks. So I'm going to try to stick to the time, but when you get an emeritus professor, particularly because I don't have the opportunity to talk in class anymore, I'm not actively teaching. Um, any opportunity to talk is we tend to go on long. You'll tell from my accent that so I am going to talk. I was asked to talk a little bit about my career path first, give you a background how I got through my career and maybe give some pointers for you. Um, but then I'll get into a quick overview of the science plan. But my accent will give away that I'm not actually from here. I live in Hawaii, right there, Kailua, Honolulu. But I was born in South Africa, so I use this. I go back to South Africa every couple of years, and I use this as a way to talk to new engineers, the very early classes. I'd show them this just out of interest. So for me to get back to South Africa for visit family members, we fly 9 hours to Atlanta, direct flight. Delta has that flight. And then you sit in Atlanta for the rest of the day. And then there's another evening overnight flight from Atlanta to Johannesburg, South Africa, 16 hours. And you'll notice that only the first half an hour and the last hour are over land. All of the rest is over the Atlantic Ocean. Um, and if you go to sleep after they give you a meal, you go to sleep and you wake up in the middle of the night. You know those little screens on the back of the seat in front of you. I took a picture of it just to prove that we're over water for 13, 14 of those 16 hours. You get to Johannesburg. My parents retired in Cape Town down here. And so another 2 hour flight to get there. The reason I put that little star, that is the lat long of Honolulu, but the antipole. So it's a basically halfway around the world to get there. This is the opposite side of the world from Honolulu. And my mother would always say, you took our grandchildren about as far away from us as you could, which wasn't intentional, but I'll give you that history. And this is how you get there. These planes used to have four engines for transatlantic, transoceanic flights. They now have only two. Um, but they make it. A 16-hour flight, 3,000 RPM, idling, not idling speed, but regular running speed. That's 3 million rotations of that motor every time they fly. They're there for 2 hours, change passengers, check the plane out, and they return. And they do this for years, right? Monthly, they service the plane, but these things work. It's quite phenomenal. And that's the return trip. I woke up again, middle of the night. That's what it looks like. And this is what the sky looks like the rest of the time. There are thousands, literally thousands of airplanes in the air all the time, these big, big planes. And they're not falling out. They're not, there's a few crashes here and there, but it's incredibly small failure rate. And I asked the students, why is this? It's engineers. You do it. You as an engineer make this possible. And the next question is, why are we not doing this for other things? Housing. Why did we lose 42 people last week in that tornado outbreak in the Midwest? Why? There's no reason that buildings should be destroyed in hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes. We know how to do better. And one of the problems is that we're only engineers up until now. It's the social science that we've been missing. How do we get the message across? How do we persuade people we know how to build? You're just going to have to put a little more money into it. And we put a lot of money into airplanes. We pay for that in our tickets. And we're willing to pay for it because we don't want to die. Why are we not doing the same for housing? Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. So when you get to South Africa, by the way, Cape Town is a beautiful city. If you ever get a chance to go, you have to grab it. It's spectacular. I love going there. Uh, what I want to show, let me see. Thought I had one more picture. Sorry, I've got these out of order. This is where my parents retired in an apartment condo, looking out at Table Mountain, Cape Town, and up the coastline. This is a panoramic view, obviously. It's just the sun sets right here. It's phenomenal. Anyway, My sister lives there now, so I still go back and visit. But this is South Africa, bottom end of Southern Africa, or Africa itself. Cape Town's down there. I was born in Johannesburg, right here, and East London is where I spent most of my growing up. So I want to show you relative to the US. You're obviously familiar with the US. If we look straight through the earth and flip South Africa around, this is essentially how it overlaps, approximately the same scale. And Cape Town that I just showed you is the same latitude as San Francisco. So the same Mediterranean climate, cold winters, wet winters, warm, dry summers, or warmish, dry summers. And where I grew up was East London, right here, just like the Carolinas. But we have nothing beyond that, nothing further south. We have none of this stuff. Michigan. We don't. People think, oh, you have cold weather down. No, we don't. It's beautiful weather. Johannesburg, where I was born, is a mile high, like Denver, but not as cold. In fact, it's down at Miami latitude, so it gets cool. There'll be a little frost, maybe a snow every now and then, but um, it's a beautiful country. You get a chance to go. Um, so I was born there. It was apartheid South Africa, 1948. The National Party won and flipped the whole country to this apartheid system. I was born in 57, about 10 years later, middle class white family. My father trained as an electrical engineer, which helped inspire me, but very soon changed to Presbyterian minister. So he was a minister the rest of his life. And my mother was a math teacher, which was also extremely helpful. These are not things you can choose to be born with, but if you can, it's a perfect match. And it helped me through college. This is the house that I lived in as an infant in Johannesburg. Um, and then my dad decided to move to East London, a little town on the coast, named by the British who landed there, East London. Um, and it was one of the last mixed communities. So the National Party was splitting up, moving all the black, Indian, and colored folk out of white areas. God damn it! And this was one of the last neighborhoods in East London that was mixed. It's a small town, about 100,000 people. I don't know if you can see me, but that's me there. And these were our neighbors. So this was a nice mixed community for us to grow up in. He started the first racially integrated Presbyterian church in South Africa because they had been separate. Just people choose, birds of a feather and all that stuff. Um, and this was the youth group that we as kids, then skinny launched there, would get invited along. This was a beach trip that we took. So I was raised opposed. My father was a big opponent of apartheid and did a lot to force things to change. He was a big part of why things eventually changed through nonviolent action. He was a big believer in Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. And anyway, he also, my parents put the wanderlust, travel wanderlust into us. We traveled everywhere. We had this little 1100cc, 1.1 liter in a VW van, and we drove tens of thousands of miles around Southern Africa. Every holiday, we'd be traveling, sleeping in the van. Everybody, 5 people, double bed in the back. My sister right at my parents' feet, and the 2 front seats, the back would come up the bench back would come up, and I'd sleep on the top, and my brother on the bottom. We'd have to alternate because we could decide who should have the top. But that's me. When my brother and I ended high school, he was a year ahead of me. My parents decided to move up to Johannesburg again, and so that we could go to the University of Robertson, certainly the best engineering school in the country, and get our education there. And so I graduated. You won't pick me out of this picture, but yeah, it's me, page boy, haircut. Oh God, the days. And you will notice something about this picture, though. First of all, faculty along the front, all of my graduating civil engineering class, which was about a third of what we started with. We started with 200 students in year 1. By year 4, there were 70 of us left, and that's about how the ratio would go, the retention ratio. It was not an easy program, but you'll notice something else. There are only two non-white black folk, one here, one there. Sorry, one here, three. My apologies. One, two, three. Um, it really was unusual for black folk to be admitted to university. The systems were so segregated. That has changed completely now. 80% of this class now will be black, colored, Indian, and only 20% possibly Caucasian. The other thing you'll notice is there isn't a single female in the group. The 200 starting freshmen, there were three females, and none of them made it through. That has changed completely as well, fortunately. So yeah, it's a long time ago, 1978. After that, 2 years of military service, prescriptive, required for white males. And so I did that service as a clerk to a chaplain because I refused to carry a gun and refused to train to kill people. And then joined Over Arab. And after university, I did well at university, so my grades were good. I got 4 offers of employment, and I chose the one that had the least pay, the smallest pay, not intentionally, but because they were the best company to work for. Over Arab, internationally known, now known just as Arab. Ove has died some years ago. And they've done, the Sydney Opera House was one of their early keystone projects, but they've done some tremendous buildings in South Africa. This is a bank building and a very clever construction. A single core in the middle, slip-form core, cantilever pre-stressed concrete beams sticking out on all sides. And they'd only start with the top ones, and then they build a floor on the ground, formed on the ground, and they lift it up and attach it right here, 21st floor. That gets built first. And then they build these cantilevers. They precast, so they precast, come through the full length, and then post-tension them in place. And then they built the 11th floor on the ground, lifted it up to the 11th floor. Now they can build the other floors, these 9 floors, they can build on top of the 21st floor. And these 9 floors, they can build on top of the 11th floor while they're building these 10 floors from the ground floor up. So they had 3 construction sites working simultaneously, lifting them up, hanging them, and they're all hanging. So there's just glass at the bottom except for the central core. Spectacular building. I didn't get to work on that one. I got to work on a boring parking garage next to it, but what the hell? You can't choose everything. But the beauty of this is engineering training. They had a very strong principle of the first 6 months, you're going to work in one field. And I worked in heavy civil, a lot of mining and rail and roadway type work. The second was bridges. The third was buildings when I worked on that parking garage. The fourth was going to be hydraulic systems, flow, open channel flow, or sewage plants, etc. But by then, the wanderlust had caught, and I was applying for scholarships to come either to the UK or to the US. And I got a Fulbright scholarship that brought me to the US. So I had to say goodbye to Arab. And I came to Rice University for my master's. I was given 3 choices of schools to come to. Rice University, Houston, Texas, Vanderbilt, and UC Boulder. And this is before the internet, right? We're talking 1982, 1981. I got the scholarship. And Fulbright does that because these universities are prepared to provide TA or RA sponsorship. So Fulbright doesn't have to pay the full fare. I knew nothing about these universities. I went to my professor. We didn't have books in the library. We had Tech and MIT, but none of these. So I get to my structures faculty, my instructor, and he said, well, Boulder is in Colorado. That's cold. You won't like that. It's too cold. Vanderbilt is in Pittsburgh, which it's not. But he said that's a steel industry. It's smoky. It's a horrible city. It's not. It's a beautiful city, Pittsburgh, if you go visit. And Vanderbilt isn't there anyway. Houston, that's near the coast. You'll like that. You grew up in East London. You like it. Oh, Galveston Beach is not. not my idea of the coast. Sorry. But I'm very glad I did that. I'm very glad I made that. It's the first time I drove to Boulder, to Colorado, and I saw Boulder. I thought, what the hell am I doing in Houston? But everything works for a reason. So don't regret decisions that you make, because sometimes down the road they'll turn out to be the right decision. And this one was. I studied post-tension pre-stressed double T beams, but tested as a single T. So we use double Ts all the time, parking garages, stuff like that. And it had come up in my work with Robertson. So I thought this would be a nice thing to study. And my advisor was happy for me to play around. We built 13 beams, we tested them, and we're looking at using welded wire fabric as the shear reinforcement, because the webs of these beams is very narrow, and putting a hooked bar or a U-shaped bar just doesn't work. You don't have enough cover left. And so welded wire mesh was an option, and that's now available. It has been in the code. I published a paper on it, and that's what pre-stress companies are using now as a simple way to reinforce that narrow web. Because I was on a J visa, which is a temporary visa, I had to go back to South Africa. That's part of the Fulbright system. You have to take what you've learned back. So I went back to South Africa, went back to OVARUP, and they said, well, you also need experience in the field. You've had office experience. Now you need experience in the field. So we're going to assign you to a project out in Dwaalboom. That means the tree that is lost, the tree that is wandering, because it's out in nowhere. I mean, you look at it, it's a miserable place. But that's where the limestone was. And rather than ship the limestone, you ship the cement. So they built this factory out there. And my task was they were building these silos by slip form. So you build the formwork on the ground level, and then you jack it up, and you continuously jack while you add rebar, pour concrete, add rebar, pour concrete, 24 hours a day, and it takes about a week to build one of these massive concrete silos. And it was my job. Obviously, I get given the night shift, and we went through 3 of these silos while I was there. Just incredible experience. So if you get a chance, I know a lot of us want to get into research. We want to get into a design office. We want to get into a faculty position. But if you get a chance to work in a design office, to work in field in the field like this, it is totally invaluable. You will never regret it. It doesn't put you back in your future career. You're not losing 3 years of what you could be doing as a professor. You're gaining the knowledge that you need to be a better professor. So that's one of my life lessons. But my wife, in that time I was back in South Africa, I got married, and my wife and I decided to get back to the US, called my old professor, Ahmed Jirani, and he had just received funding because of the Mexico City earthquakes in 1985 to look at slab column connection performance during earthquakes. And so I came back to Rice University and did 3 years of a PhD, and published a couple of papers on the performance of these flat slab buildings, which we use everywhere. Every condo in the country, Miami, here in Hawaii, they're all flat slab buildings. So when I came to interview here in Hawaii, and obviously I was presenting about a type of system that they use throughout the islands for condos, hotels, and showing the seismic vulnerability. And Hawaii obviously is a seismic state. And so obviously the ideal topic for me to presenting at my interview. I didn't come straight to Hawaii after that. I wanted to get my license as a professional engineer. And I wanted to get more experience in the US, design and constructions. So 2 of the professors, these are not them, but 2 of the professors at Rice University were practicing engineers working for Walter Moore and Associates, and they would come in and teach tall building design, which was really structural steel tall buildings, and reinforced concrete structural design. Again, looking at reinforced concrete buildings, modeling them with the early version of ETABS. This is 82 through 80, 80, well, for my PhD, 85 through 90, 86 through 90. And early days of it was called tabs initially instead of ETABS, and early computers. First desktop computer I ever saw was at Rice University. So I wanted more experience in, and they recruited me. And part of the reason they taught there, of course, was to recruit from Rice University graduate students. And I remember Walter Moore, he's unfortunately passed away soon after I left. Um, Walter Moore, an associate, he passed away in a car accident. But I remember him coming in and speaking to our graduate students at Rice University, and a hand was raised at the end of his talk and said, "Mr. Moore, do you hire PhD candidates?" And he said, "Absolutely. Why would we not hire the smartest people we can find?" Um, the difference is, however, we're not going to pay you any more than we pay a master's student, because that's the work we have, right? I do it anyway. Yeah. If you get the chance, this is an excellent company. Again, they were interested in training me. They were hoping I'd stay. I didn't, and that's one of the risks they take. But in the process, I did get my green card through them. And I got enough experience with the South African experience to get my PE license, which make it so much easier for somebody to hire me as a foreigner coming into the country. If you don't have your green card, people hiring you have to think about that as something they're going to have to assist with. And PE license is valuable at any teaching institution for engineering, because ABET expects that they have PEs teaching design courses. So universities are looking for those attributes. And during that time, the first class, because I had some experience in South Africa working on site, they would send me to Cincinnati twice a week to oversee the construction of this, serve as the site agent, the observation component of the structural design. They'd already completed the design of this 312 walnut building. And so I was there twice a week to go and check that things were being built according to the plans. Wonderful project. And I use it throughout my teaching. I've used experience from that project. And the other one was I got to do the structural design for this pyramid-shaped structure. The Moody Gardens founders, this is a charity foundation that that decided to build this glass biome. They wanted to build a tropical forest in Galveston. Hurricane zone. Let's cover a pyramid with glass in the hurricane zone and see what happens. Anyway, that's the architect's decision, not mine. I just have to make the structure stand up to those high winds. Plus a little 3-story building here, flat slab building, which is the entryway, and you can look into this biome that has butterflies and waterfalls and trees. I've never been back, fortunately, so I don't have good pictures of what it looks like, but you can Google it on the web. But I use that every introductory class, every open house. I use this to describe what civil engineering is. As a civil engineer, that's what I'm trying to show people. And I use this picture to describe how the main 6 areas in civil engineering get to work. We have environmental impact is the first step. Secondly, how we're going to get the water to flow off the site. What's the drainage, hydraulics? The geotechs come in and figure out what kind of foundation, how much load can we put, what do we have to do for the foundations. Structural engineers design the actual structures. We have to get people there, so the transportation have to figure out how many people, how they're going to move, what are the roadway, etc. And finally, the construction engineers have to put this whole thing together. And so it helps new civil engineers understand where their part might be in their future career. So the one drawback, I must say, for design work is that the money is not good. It's better now than it used to be, but we were not surviving. Even in the cheap Houston environment, we were struggling to stay alive. And so my wife and I decided, well, let me look for a teaching. It's about time. I was about to get my green card, about to get the PE. I thought it's time to start looking at advertisements. I sent in 2 applications, one to University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and my wife said, I don't want to go there. It's way too cold. And the other one to University of Hawaii. And Hawaii called first and said, yeah, you want to come and interview? And they actually asked, are you serious about the job? Because we don't want to just have you come here for a holiday. We need to know you're actually going to take it if we give it to you. I said, hell yeah, we're interested. So we went to Hawaii, interviewed on the Friday. After the interview, the chair was driving me back to the hotel in Waikiki. He said, we've met with my committee. We've seen all three of the candidates, and we've decided to offer the job to you. So talk to your wife about it while you stay here for the weekend and decide. So we're sitting on Hanauma Bay. I don't know if any of you have been to Hawaii, but Hanauma Bay is this old crater that's broken away on one side, and it's just a paradise for fish. It's a nature reserve and for snorkeling. And we're sitting on this beach, and we're thinking of Galveston Beach, Hanauma Bay. It was not a difficult decision. So we told him immediately we will be there. We'll be there August 1st. So I was there from 1992. I got promoted to full professor, department chair for 3 years. Another life lesson. Well, two of them here. First one is try to stick with the topic that you want to spend your life working on. So I started out doing flat slab research at Rice University, at University of Hawaii. But getting funding for reinforced concrete large-scale testing is getting more and more difficult. And I wasn't finding enough research. So started looking at other areas. But if you can find your niche and find funding for it, stick to it because you'll become an expert in that area. So I ended up dabbling in a lot of things, in earthquake, in hurricane, in tsunami, now tsunami. And in a way that's worked as well, because I currently work as a consultant to FEMA Building Science, where I teach courses or trainings for FEMA folk on all hazards. And so it's actually very convenient that I dabbled in all of them, but it doesn't make me an expert in any of them. But you can fake it until you make it. Anyway, so the other life lesson is don't take on these major service commitments. I avoided being chair. I was asked to be chair many times before. I was there for almost 27 years before I took the chair position. And eventually I did. You need to serve the community that you're working with. And so I did my 3 years. And then a year later, I retired. And still very busy with this FEMA consulting work. But that was my office. I looked out through the palm trees over this fairly famous sculpture by this guy who does them all over the world. But I'm looking at Waikiki Beach off in the distance. It was beautiful. I thoroughly enjoyed my time at the University of Hawaii, 32 years. Never a dull moment. Never waking up on a Monday morning when I didn't want to go to work. Monday was the best day of the week because I could get back to what I love doing. That's because my wife refused to let me do it on the weekends. She said, you can't be working 7 days a week. Yeah, difficult sometimes in these smaller schools to get the money that you need to do what you want to do. We did get funding for a big test frame you see in the back and a few other frames, but I had always wanted a shake table. And only a couple of years during COVID, a couple of years before I retired, this company, SSFM, a design company, put together the money that formed the basis for a 5x5 shake table, just unidirectional, but with capacity to go to 2 dimensions. And it was finally installed and operational 1 month before I retired. So I'd spent 32 years trying to get a damn shake table, and I never got to use it, but they have it now. A couple of new faculty are able to use it. So yeah, I always wonder if I'd gone to Michigan. I mean, the possibilities there are much larger, bigger school, more well known. But I'm actually very, very glad that I chose Hawaii. So enough of my background. Where am I time-wise? I'm probably way over. Hey, I am. Oh man, sorry. I told you.
Talk fast, Ian. Talk
I
fast.
just talked my mouth off. All right. So I've talked about the social science aspects, and that was a big reason for the third edition of the science plan. We didn't cover the social science aspects of Converge adequately. We didn't cover the ERS, the extreme event reconnaissance networks. something I strongly encourage you to do. One of these will be in the area that you're researching. Join them. The amount that you can learn from field experience is phenomenal. And we didn't cover the simulation tools. If anybody was in that workshop yesterday, they're doing roundtable webinars. Sign up for those Sim Center. They're fascinating. The things they can do now with those tools is just phenomenal. So we wanted to get that included. We ran a workshop. I won't go into all the details, but the third edition is now available. Here's the QR code. You'll be getting a copy of these PowerPoints as a PDF. Read through it. I think there's some excellent ideas. It wasn't just me writing it. There were 16 people on a task force and 63 people at that workshop. It's their product. The intent is for it to provide guidance for you, natural hazards research community, and for the funding agencies. And the objective, obviously, is to prevent loss of life, reduce damage, economic losses. How do we get housing and construction to the same safety level as we expect for airplanes? That should be our goal. So obviously, yeah, you're the audience, particularly young faculty, junior researchers, graduate students. As you're starting your career, this is intended to be somewhat of a guide for how you can proceed. We have 3 grand challenges. We need to understand the hazard. We need to understand our vulnerability to that hazard, not only the civil infrastructure, which is what engineers have focused on forever, but also the social system that uses that infrastructure. They are impacted, not just by injuries and death, but by loss of occupation, have to relocate. We haven't focused in the past enough on the social consequences of these disasters. And how do we develop solutions, workforce and design construction solutions? Some of the neat new components to the NCO, which you might have heard of, is the Technology Transfer Committee. This is a committee that will help you not steer your research, but at least ensure that your research has applicability and can be moved into practice once you're done with the work. A very important component. And so there's a section on that explaining how they can help you. And this white paper that you can get from this QR code will help you as well. We go through 5. I'm not going to list them, but you can look at these in the PDF. 5 success stories where technology from field reconnaissance, these 2 were based on field reconnaissance, and this one, Jamie Padgett at Rice, got into practice. And the Tallwood project and soil remediation also now being used in practice. So your research can very easily, not easily, take some effort, but there's no reason not to get it into practice so that people can use it. We have 7 research campaigns, and you should at least glance through them to find one that is similar to what you're working on, and then read through it. There are excellent ideas there on, you don't have to solve the whole research campaign, but maybe you can find an area that suits your research and you can work on that field. And finally, we have a list of keys to success, steps that we think you should follow or that can help you to develop a strong, diverse team, develop a credible research topic, figure out early which NHERI facility you're going to use, contact them before you even start writing the proposal. Is this something you can cope with? Do you have the time, the space, things like that? If you're working with communities, if you're doing I forget the name, test beds in a particular community. Get those community members involved in writing the proposal, in your development. They don't have to write it, but during your development, they need to be involved. Don't come to them later and say, oh, we've got this magic idea that will solve all your problems. No, they need to be involved. They need to have ownership of those solutions. Get help from the TTC. Get industry. One of the reasons the research I did through NICE, the predecessor to NHERI, on tsunami loading, one of the reasons it got into the ASC 7 code as a new chapter is because I had a practicing engineer, Gary Chock, on the research project from the very beginning. And by the time we were done, he said, we have enough information to write a chapter for ASC 7. So get somebody involved who knows how to transfer things into practice. Um, and don't be scared don't be scared to share what you've written. Have friends, family members, other people review. You need to trust them. Don't give your proposal to anybody, but somebody who's not going to spread what your brilliant idea is. Have them red team it for you and go through the work. There are a couple of appendices that describe all of the different facilities at NHERI. You've seen most of these, and the ears have a chance to describe what they do, so you can look for the one that works for you. So this third edition is intended as a roadmap for NHERI, whether NHERI continues or not. The hope is that NHERI will continue, but under the current administration, who knows what the hell is going to happen next. But that's it. That's end of did I make my 35 minutes? I'm a little over. Sorry, spent more time talking about my career path than about the science plan. But please download a copy of the science plan, take a look through it's a big document, but the first 35 pages is all you need to read. The rest you can scan these appendices, what you want to find. Thanks very much, and I'll happy to take questions.
Thank you, Dr. Robertson. You actually ended early. But yeah, if you have Joe, well, hold on, just 1 minute early. But if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask, and we'll get those hopefully answered. In the meantime, I do have a quick question.
Sure.
I know you said getting field experience is good. Even now is even more difficult for students to transition into these academic positions. Would field experience be better than, let's say, getting a postdoc position?
Yeah, it is you're right. It's a difficult decision to make. My original intent with going to OVARP was that I did want to get a feel for the design field, what it was like to work in a design office. And it's pretty stressful, by the way. I mean, academicians, faculty will tell you their life is stressful. No, sorry. Yeah, to get tenure, it is stressful. But after that, yeah, it's not a cakewalk, but it's a fun ride. Working in a design office is stressful. There's a lot of pressure. Deadlines are real. I would often wake up in a cold sweat worrying about whether I'd made any mistakes, whether something was going to fall down. You'd walk into the office. There's no voicemail at that time. You'd walk into the office and there were these pink slips from phone calls that had come in. And your name had a bunch of pink slips, and you take those pink slips that the secretary had written out, and you'd be paging through them. Who's complaining? What's happening? What's going wrong on site? What do I have to fix? It's pretty stressful. Plus, it doesn't pay well. So it's a hard decision. The other thing is academic positions now require so much more of you. They expect you to have written proposals already. They expect you to have published multiple journal papers, right? And you don't get to do that while you're working in industry. Not easily, anyway. I did publish 2 papers with Walter Moore and Associates, and coincidentally, one of them was of that pyramid structure, and it came out in it's the Steel Industry magazine. I forget the name of the magazine. Modern Steel Construction. It came out in that magazine as a front cover image, right? It was the cover story, was this pyramid structure. And when I came to interview at Hawaii, it was the same month that magazine came out. And one of the practicing engineers who was in the audience for my seminar at Rice University, at University of Hawaii, at the end of my seminar, when it came to questions, he held up this magazine and he said, "Did you write this article?" I said, "Yeah, that was just published." So it is possible to write articles but it's much more difficult. So yeah, there are drawbacks. Another option, there are 2 types of field experience. One of them is that actually getting to a design office or a construction site. The other one is the EERs, the extreme event reconnaissance, after event reconnaissance. That you can do while you're a postdoc, while you're a grad student. You can sign up with STEER or NEAR or GEAR, whichever one fits your research. You can learn an enormous amount from the people in those groups, but also from the reconnaissance, both virtually and field reconnaissance that you could get involved with. But yeah, I recognize the pressure to publish and have a very strong resume to get a faculty position nowadays. But many PhDs don't get into faculty positions. They end up in research or design office work. But yeah, it is a difficult step, difficult decision.
Thanks. Thank you. We do have a comment here. How do you envision early career faculty using the NHERI Science Plan?
All right. So read through it just to get an idea of what the NHERI community thinks are important issues that have to be dealt with, particularly the research campaigns at the end. There are 7 of them in this edition, and we also refer back to the second edition of the NHERI Science Plan, which had another 5 research campaigns, still perfectly valid. We didn't duplicate them. We didn't update them. We added another 7. So there are a lot of ideas there that could spur your research, could give you ideas of what research you could work on. If you're very early in your graduate program and you're still just doing coursework and looking for research ideas, this science plan will give you more than you can imagine. So that's one good reason. The other one is if you are planning to move into a faculty position, if you're applying for faculty positions, this will give you an idea of what possibilities there are for you to look forward to. They're going to ask at your interview, what is it you want to do as a faculty member? What research are you going to focus on? And having good ideas for that research makes a big difference. So yeah, that's what I think you can gain from the science plan.
Thank you. Is there any more questions? We're just about going to be out of time soon, so.
I got a question.
Sure.
How many of you are planning to go and visit South Africa? I want to see a show of hands. There you go. It is. It's a beautiful place, and I'm glad we get to go back every now and then. Yeah, it's lovely. And people say, the crime rate's bad. Well, don't go to Chicago then. Don't go. The crime rates everywhere. Certainly if you go with a tour group, and if you know anybody who lives there, go with them. Yeah, it's easy enough. And obviously, having grown up there, we know where not to go and how to stay safe.
Well,
but yeah, it's a beautiful place.
What is the flight cost to South Africa?
What is the which, sorry?
The flight cost.
Oh, from Hawaii, we're paying now $2,000. Sorry. Yeah, it's not cheap. It's a long way. From the mainland, it's probably in the 1,500 range. So yeah, it's a bit of a commitment. But yeah, it's worth the trip.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Robertson, for
You're welcome. No, thanks for having me.
Of course, of course.